Welcome to The Brain Factor, hosted by myself, Joy Riddle, and Laura Hawley. We're a part of Meridian Behavioral Healthcare, where we believe that wellness is within everyone's reach. This podcast is a conversation about what research-based protective factors look like in real life. Our hope is that you'll walk away with something that you can use in your own life and have had some fun with us along the way. So let's get started. Welcome to The Brain Factor. I'm Joy, and Laura is here with me, as she always is. So I wanted to talk a little bit about procrastination this month.
I already feel personally attacked.
I know, right? That was my goal. So procrastination, I think, for a lot of people brings negativity right to mind, as you just evidenced by saying, I feel personally attacked.
Yeah.
And I think probably most of the thoughts around it are valid in thinking that it's negative. But I know for me, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because I would procrastinate sometimes. I wouldn't want to do this. I wouldn't want to do that. I wouldn't get that done. Mostly for me at that time, it was about doing things, errands, being out. And my daughter said to me one day, just stop and do it on your way home. You'll be so happy in the morning. And I'm like, okay, the student becomes the master. So I'm going to listen to her. And I did that. And I just kind of forced myself through it to do it. And then I was like, great. The next day I didn't have any of that to do. So I started to apply that to other places in my life, or as more of a strategy, and thought about what reasons are we procrastinating? What are some of the reasons you procrastinate?
So for me, I like to say, like, I'm a big time procrastinator, right? And I do a lot of things last minute. I've convinced myself over the years, not sure if this is real or imagined, that I work well under pressure.
I'm the same.
Yeah. And so, like, it's okay. That justifies my procrastination. Like, anything. I can pull it off at the last minute. I'm better that way, right?
Yeah.
But I have
There's probably some truth to that too, though.
Because I have no choice, right? But I think if I'm really being honest and I look at, like, the formula for my own procrastination, like what causes it, the kind of the why and the what, right? I think that there's definitely a link to my mental and emotional health.
Yes.
Right, for sure. I think on times when I am feeling down about myself and my abilities, I tend to put off things that have to use those abilities. Right. So I really do that because of insecurities and feelings of inadequacy and things like that. I think also if I'm feeling any kind of depression, I think that I start to feel like, what's the point?
Yeah.
And I also think the older I get, like the reality of, like, I'm just tired more often.
You're tired more often.
I used to be able to do things late at night, and I'm still more of a night owl than a morning person, but, like, there comes a time and an age where your brain doesn't work the same way. So it's like, you know what? That was on my to-do list. Like I guess what I'm trying to struggle to say is my to-do lists are the same size, and my capacity to do them is smaller. So those things that I deem less of a priority tend to get put on the next day's list over and over and over and over again. Before I know it, I've procrastinated the heck out of that, and it's not happening.
Yeah.
The other thing I've noticed about why I procrastinate is not something that I am proud of, but I will share it for the sake of it being a learnable moment. But when I have a good support system, I procrastinate more. Because
they're going to pick up the slack.
Pick up the slack. Isn't that awful? I don't do it on purpose.
I don't. Oh, I feel really bad. I don't want to, and I'm going to say something good about my husband now. He's going to be like, you're talking good about me on the show? I feel the same way.
That's who I was thinking of too.
And I was always like, I'm super independent. I don't need anybody or anything ever. But, like, if I don't do that long enough, Rudy probably will.
Right. Or even just passing the buck. Like, can you pick this up? Can you do this task? Can you, like, I know his answer is always going to be yes.
Yes.
Because I've asked.
Yes.
But
it's not always yes when he asks me.
Right. So I know someone else is going to pick up the slack, and therefore that does contribute to my procrastination. I procrastinated less when I was on my own because I didn't have a choice.
You didn't have a choice. You had to have it all going on.
Right. So I think there's a lot of reasons, good, bad. I'm not sure that any of them are serving me well, right?
Yeah.
But the reasons themselves are not always bad. Sometimes it is because it's due to depression or my mental emotional
Yeah.
state or my physical state, and sometimes it's just due to knowing that I have support.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Can I throw you under the bus for a second?
Yes, please do.
Okay.
That's what I'm here for.
So, so given that, I hadn't thought of that, but when you said what your support system, and I don't think this was about support system, I think this was about phone a friend for help.
Sure.
This morning, you messaged me early and you were like, can you print out this that I need for this? I've been messing with the printer. It's not working. I've been doing it for 30 minutes. I've got to get on the road, knowing I live, 5 minutes away.
Right.
Totally fine. I was happy to do it. But if you did that, I don't know why you did that this morning instead of last night, when you would have known if it was a problem last night.
Yep.
And this is no negative connotation, no judgment, anything like that.
Because the real answer is because I knew I could call you.
I didn't expect that.
No, it's true. Did I consciously think that? No.
Yeah.
But the reality,
there was a backup.
If I go back and look at it, it's because it wasn't my only option.
Right. Yeah.
Right? If I was coming and I was recording something alone and there was no one else involved, that had the notes,
you would have been more. Yeah.
I probably would have had them printed 2 or 3 days ago. Right.
Right. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
For me in that case.
Yeah. I also, in that case too, I knew that if all else failed, I had them on my phone.
Oh yeah, totally.
So there was a digital backup. But that's a great example.
Yeah.
You did throw me under the bus, but
it just happened this morning. Sorry.
No, that's fine. That's great.
But it's kind of that's how I have worked on my procrastination. I don't think I had any chronic procrastination, I didn't have procrastination to the point where it was a problem for me. It was just for, switch things for a little mental health uplift, almost a self-care, because I'm not stressing myself out at the last minute to do things.
I think
and I get more effective.
Mine is a work in progress for sure.
Oh, me too.
I think you're further along than I am, but one of the things the stage I'm at is where I'm sort of tricking myself. And I'm trying to change, and I know this is one of the strategies that you have on your list with changing mindset, right? But I'm trying to change the way that I view a due date, right?
Yes.
So if the due date was today, then I need to view that as yesterday.
Yes.
So that my last minute then becomes Wednesday.
Right.
And not Thursday, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but it's
it does, because
really
I have
backing it up. As
I have artificial due dates for everything,
right?
And it depends. The bigger the project, if I have a big project due at work, a big thing, I set my deadline a week ahead of an actual real deadline.
Right.
And that's what I try to work
and
towards.
And that's hard though, because you're making the change, so you in the back of your mind know that that's not the due date, right? But just trying to change that habit.
But it is the due date. It is the new due date.
Right.
You're going to progress and you're going to start to accept it as the real due date.
Well, and it's so interesting because I think too, self-awareness, which we know is really helpful with our resiliency and our mental health and our calm, and all of that. I think one of the things I'm proud of myself recently is, I have a wonderful CEO that's constantly asking what do you need? How can I support you? And I was really honest for the first time at the beginning of this fiscal year, and I said, I need accountability. I need you to give me due dates, and I need you to hold me to them, even when you are okay with it being fluid. I have to know, and we can change the due date. We can, on the things where we have that luxury. And she's been really good about that with me. She's been like, okay, so now we need to do this. How's Wednesday?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yep. And because I will meet every deadline. Yes. I will just be up till 11 o'clock the night before.
Yeah, but if you're kicking, Yeah, my example was more of there is an actual real deadline coming. Yeah, but I did something similar too with my CEO recently. There's this thing I've been kicking the can on it, and it's my own initiative and thing that I want.
Right.
I texted her one day. I said, hey, by January, I want to have this launched for the company. I'm putting this in writing in a text to you so you can hold me accountable, and now I'll make sure I do it because you're expecting it.
Yeah. Yes. So I think that's an interesting part of
And it was a
procrastination.
text message. I know we talked about
Oh, we did
digital
talk about digital.
communication because I know her so well and I can talk to her that way.
Well, you know what we didn't talk about last month is the having a record. Having
Oh,
a record
yeah.
of that conversation. And
I
you just
guess,
said
and
that.
I did. I was like,
Yeah.
here's proof that I said I was going to have it
So
done
that's
by
the beauty
this
of that as
time.
well. Absolutely. So that can help us with avoiding procrastination. So I have, and you know this because we've had this conversation. I have a hard time with the avoiding procrastination as the end all be all goal, right? Or like
Yeah,
this
and-
negative connotation that is associated with procrastinating. And not that it isn't negative. I mean, it means we're putting something off that needs to be done, right? So like at
Yeah.
its core, it's not a great thing. However,
If it really needs to be done.
that's the thing. I think that there's
Put a lot
so
of
much
pressure on ourselves.
Yes, so much pressure that comes from outside sources that's self-imposed.
Yes.
That this sort of rat race that we feel like we constantly have to be productive, and that our worth is tied into our achievement and our productivity. And like I'm big on like you don't have to earn rest.
Right.
But like we have to be super productive so that we can then enjoy our rest and earn our rest. And like by nature of being a human being, you get to rest. Like you don't have to earn that, even if you've
I
procrastinated.
think this is getting into the generational perspective as well.
Sure.
Because I think like, and I've said before sometimes, I joke about millennials and everything else, or Gen Z, but they're winning. At being human beings. Yes,
absolutely. Well, and
we're not.
And it's not even negative necessarily, right? So when you talk about, and this takes us back to, if you remember when we talked about stigma several episodes ago now, we talked about one of the causes of stigma being social identification theory. Right. And that's this, if you didn't watch that episode, please go back and watch it. But it's this idea that our values are aligned with our generation based on a lot of different factors: social norms, cultural considerations, historical context, all of that, right? So when you look at like the baby boomer generation, right, procrastination is evil. Right, that's a generation that values productivity.
You got up super early,
Yes.
and then you worked and worked and worked and worked and worked, and you would I value yourself that way.
Right. So that, that when you talk about, so if somebody from that generation ended up having to prioritize something else over a work task and ended up procrastinating it, versus a Gen Z ended up doing the same thing, who's going to have a bigger impact on their mental health as a result of that?
A negative impact or a positive impact?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's a really good point. So like it's going to have possibly even a positive impact on Gen Z, where they're going to go, you know what, I prioritized me.
Yeah.
And
they're going to win.
Don't have to be running all the time and I'm still of value if I'm not producing. Versus over here, the baby boomer is going to experience feelings of failure and inadequacy and guilt and shame, which is going to impact their mental health. So I hadn't thought of that before, but you are absolutely right that this is also part of that generational conversation.
Yeah. And I feel like, and I don't know, because I'm not going to tie anything to what Gen Z or millennials, or I'll speak all day on what Gen X believes, because it's the only one I have experience in, or boomers, but irrational beliefs on either side. I mean, is it irrational for a Gen Z to think that, well, I won because I took care of me? Or is it irrational for the baby boomer to think that they had to produce in this way to be of value? Or is it just that it is?
I think it's a combination
is
of
it right
is,
both ways?
and it depends to what extreme.
Yeah. Now, from our perspective, I think for the podcast and what we're doing, we're going to lean more towards you took care of you, yay, because that's what you need to do for your mental health.
But that also begs the question, what if taking care of me and doing what I need to do for my mental health means I got to check some of that stuff off of that to-do list, or I have
and
to
that's
keep
where
that
I
job,
live. Yeah.
or I have to, there does come a point where we can't just
be like,
solve it with a hug.
It's all me.
Right.
Right.
we do have to sometimes, buckle up and get some stuff done that we don't necessarily want to do or don't feel like doing, or or having some trouble with. Sometimes we have to.
Yeah. So there's some reasons that people procrastinate, maybe when you're starting to get into the chronic side of procrastination, which we're not going to get into today, but there are things like fear of failure.
Yeah.
Maybe you're not doing something because you're afraid that you might fail.
Yeah.
I took a minute to go to college after high school, and back then I had a lot of excuses for why I didn't do the things I was doing, and I didn't know until I went through it all and looked back that I was scared that I might fail.
Sure. Yeah.
So I procrastinated on signing up for that first class, honestly.
Yeah.
For a minute.
I think that's valid, because also I think it's tied into another topic we've talked about previously, which is imposter syndrome.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, let me put off this task because I'm super winning at everything right now, and that one's going to be harder, and then people are going to think I'm not as good as I am.
Right.
So let me try to avoid that. That, if I'm being honest, that's a reason that I sometimes procrastinate.
Yeah.
Or
there's perfectionists, being a perfectionist or something. And I'm not, I don't know if people would call me a perfectionist or not. I don't know what other people would call me. I think I like a lot of perfection, but I try to roll that back, because then I'm a jerk when I'm just full on, because I'll push that upon other people, only in my household, not at work. Like, why aren't you perfect? I don't understand. But I will mostly place that upon myself. And a big joke in my family, I don't know if I've mentioned this on any of the episodes before, is like with my kids, oh, well, if we only had a perfect mom, because as a mom, I hold myself to this unrealistic standard of absolute perfection, even if that comes down to, to holiday meals. Like, did you make bread this year? No, I can't do everything. So that's where that whole thing came up about, if we only had a perfect mom.
Right.
Yeah. So if you're looking at perfectionism, though, you could look at that and go, well, I'm not going to do any of this because I can't.
If I can't do it perfect,
I can't do it perfect. What's the point?
Right. Someone else is going to have to host Christmas.
Right. Exactly.
Because I can't do it the way I want to.
Right.
The way that I feel like it should be done.
Yeah.
The perfection standard. Therefore, there's no value in any of it.
Yeah.
Right?
Or I said this thing to you when you were 14, and just all or nothing thinking, catastrophizing, all of it. I stink as a mom. I'm so sorry I wasn't a better mom for you. And they'll be like, ha ha ha.
Right.
Too bad we couldn't have a perfect mother.
Right.
They just throw it at me now. Now it's a joke, and it helped me deal with it, and I don't get all stressed over those things anymore.
I think that's a big reason for procrastination, though, is that whole idea, like, if I can't do it all, or I can't do it perfect, then I'm not going to do it.
Or anxiety might stop you from doing things.
Yep, I'm afraid of not being successful. I think those are all reasons. I'm concerned about my abilities to do it.
Yeah,
those are all reasons as well.
So, what are some of the things that we can do to deal with all of this? What are some tools for us to help overcome our procrastination, like prioritizing?
Yeah. That's incredibly helpful. Really, really prioritizing. I think there's more to it than just the internal prioritizing, like on your own lists or calendars or whatever. I think you have to communicate that to other people.
Make sure someone else knows that, well, these are my priorities. So these are, when you see this 3 things done, then I'll get to your 4th thing.
Correct. Because I think that, like, I'm thinking of a specific situation where I have multiple, which I normally do, multiple tasks on the table at work. And there's this one thing that, I care about a great deal. It was my initiative, like you had said, and everybody else is on board for it too. But there's some things that are more timely that I had to really look at. This is tied into perfectionism a little bit too.
Yeah.
I had to realize I can't do all that, right? Versus looking at it and going, well, this is my to-do list. I guess I have to do it all. Inevitably, I'm going to fail at that, and something is not going to get done.
All or nothing.
Right.
Theory,
versus
thinking.
me looking at it and saying, okay, realistically, before the end of the calendar year, I can do this, this, and this, but not this 4th thing. Yeah. And then getting into that business meeting, like we have a huddle every Monday morning, getting into that and saying, okay, let me give you an update on my projects. This project we're gonna pick that back up at the top of the year because I have some things I have to prioritize over it. Now I've not procrastinated that. I've put it on the shelf.
Right.
That's different, right? Versus leaving it on the list knowing full well I'm not going to get to it, and then like making excuses for 3 months. My anxiety is going to increase. I'm going to start to feel feelings of inadequacy, shame, and guilt. It's not going to be good for my mental and emotional health. It's not going to be good for my standing at work. It's not going to be good for my relationships, right?
Yeah.
But if I'm doing that prioritization correctly and then communicating that prioritization, for me, that has been a very powerful tool that I've newly been using.
And then you can flip that all into benefits on the positive side.
Yeah.
It is going to be a positive experience. It is going to benefit my role at work and my team's success, and just looking at the same exact thing you just said from a different
Yeah.
different
I'm going to be
angle.
viewed better by others. I'm going to view myself better, more effective. They might also even stop throwing additional things my way because they know not only am I working on these 3 priorities,
True.
but I've got stuff on the back burner that are coming up next.
Yeah.
You know?
How are you with delegating?
I'm horrible at
Me
delegating.
too.
Terrible. I'm getting better though.
I try.
I'm getting better.
Been trying for years. And I'm even worse with it at home. Like, I'll never ask at home for you to help me with something, but then I'll be mad that you didn't.
Yeah.
But I don't do that at work. If I don't delegate it to you, then it's on me.
Do you know what's
But
so
at
interesting?
home-
When you asked about delegating, I immediately only thought of work.
Yeah.
And I realized I actually do delegate at home. Mm-hmm. I think my mindset is a little different at home, where I expect it to be more collaborative, and I don't feel like I'm being judged if I'm not the one that's doing everything, right? So I do get mad like you. I get like, well, how come you didn't help me? You're supposed to read my mind, right?
Yeah.
But at work,
Why are the shoes still
I
not at the
don't-
door?
I almost feel like I have to prove my worth by being able to do everything.
Yeah.
And no one's making me feel that way. That's all me, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm constantly being told that that's not
Yeah.
true. But yeah, in a professional environment, I am terrible at delegating.
Well, we both just a couple minutes ago gave examples of a different strategy, which is accountability partners.
Yes,
I did it
yes.
with my CEO, and you did it with your
Yes.
CEO.
Yeah.
You know, and at home I can say to my husband, "Hey, can you make sure that I do this thing that I don't want to do?"
Well, and you know what I'm learning too, and this is so interesting that we did these episodes back to back, because this goes back to digital communication again. One of the things I'm learning is that accountability doesn't necessarily have to come from a person, right? Or I guess it's coming from you in this regard, but like I'm putting things on the calendar, like reminders and things that I need to be made aware of,
Right.
and setting reminders different places and having it show up in my digital spaces where like I'm holding myself accountable for some of those things. Like I want to get this done and this done and this done by Friday, so I'm going to need to do this on Wednesday, this on Thursday, this, instead of hitting Friday and going, oh my gosh, how am I going to get it done before the end of the day?
And then trying not to compare yourself to other people.
Oh, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That goes back to the perfectionism thing too.
It does. That's where I was thinking this is a
Yeah.
complete address to that one.
Yeah. So for me, that's house cleaning. I want to say I'm terrible at it. I'm good at it. I'm really good at it. That's the problem. I can't just do it everything is a deep clean for me.
Oh, good. I
So
love
therefore,
that.
yeah, but because of that, I don't do it often.
Oh, because
Because I can't do it right.
You're pushing it off.
Right.
You're just touching on every one of the little little things right now.
But getting
Little
back to the one
strategies.
that you wanted to talk about is so I have started assigning to myself, like, instead of like I'm cleaning the entire house in a day, because the way that I clean, that's not ever going to happen. It's like today I'm going to do the bathrooms. And today I'm going to do the baseboards. And I'm realizing if I do a little bit of it every day as a pattern of behavior, the house is just going to stay clean to my standards. Goes back to the perfectionism piece.
Yeah.
Without me procrastinating it, and I'm going to feel a lot better.
How are you doing
about
with
things.
that daily
It's
thing?
very new, and my daughter is helping. She has things she's going to also be doing with me every day, and so far so good.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it's going really
That's
well.
a great example.
Yep.
Practical. I'm sure lots
Haven't
of us.
been doing it long enough to tell you if it's sustainable or not. It's been about a month, but it's going really well. Less stress.
Yeah.
A lot less stress over cleaning, which was important to me during this time of year.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it right in the beginning of this, but like changing mindset.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like
realizing it doesn't have to be perfect, realizing that it's not all falling on my shoulders, and those kinds of things are really important.
Or maybe if you're working on bigger projects, whether that's cleaning the house, this is exactly what you just talked about, scheduling it into increments, breaking it down, because otherwise you were going to do the all or nothing thinking and not do anything because you couldn't do it well enough. It crosses every single one of them except anxiety. No,
Well, it's
perfection and
viewing it as like the way you would pay off a large bill, right? You're not just suddenly going to have a lump sum of money.
Not going to pay your house off in one day.
You're going to make payments, right? So maybe making payments, I'm using air quotes for those who aren't watching, on your tasks, I think can be really beneficial.
Yeah. So what are the takeaways for us here? I mean, we're procrastinating. Sometimes that's okay. Some things could potentially maybe work themselves out or change. If I put a task off too long, it might not need to be done anymore.
Well, yeah, I think that goes back to like if you're at all a person who is controlling, and I tend to want to like, take control of a situation and solve the problem, and I'm very like task oriented that way. When the reality is, if I procrastinated that a little bit, it might take care of itself.
Yeah. Definitely. I probably am guilty of thinking about that.
Yeah.
Every now and then.
Like give it a beat. Give things a beat.
Give it a minute. See what happens. Let's let this play out. Maybe something will change. Yeah.
But I think the big takeaways are like really look at your procrastination habits, right? Where are they coming from? Are they serving you or are they not serving you?
Right.
Because again, that whole idea that we don't have to measure our worth by our productivity and our achievements is a really important part of this conversation. However, there are things that need to be done, and if we are procrastinating certain things, and they're different for every person what those things are, we're going to increase our anxiety and our depression levels and our feelings of guilt and shame and inadequacy. So look at, is it serving you, is it not serving you, and then communicate. Professionally, personally, let people know what you are putting off and why, and what they can expect from you. And I think that helps you know what you can expect from yourself too.
Well, that's a fantastic wrap up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for
joining us today. We'll see you next month.
Thanks for listening to The Brain Factor. Joy and I are so thrilled to be having these needed conversations. We'd love to hear your feedback on this episode, so if you could drop a comment or leave a review with your thoughts or any requests that you may have, it would be appreciated. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Living a healthier and happier life starts with one step, and we're excited to be on this journey with you. Until next time.